Will you be able to dismiss your student loans from the Department of Education through bankruptcy court? Maybe so, maybe not. The Biden administration is trying to make that a little bit easier. However, you're going to have some people that are going to say, hey, he shouldn't make it easy at all. You can also have some people that are going to say, hey, they should make it even easier. Let's talk about
the fate of student loan debt relief is still uncertain, but the Biden administration today releasing new details about what options are available for people facing bankruptcy on their student loans. 22 News reporter Kay Wilkinson explains your options.
While it's unclear exactly how student loan forgiveness is going to shake out in the courts, the key thing here is to prepare. Don't panic. While the Department of Justice appeals a federal court judge's decision to block up to $20,000 in student loan forgiveness, the same organization announced a new process for people facing bankruptcy on their student loans. The goal would be to make it easier for student loan borrowers to declare bankruptcy. With loan payments set to start up in January again, bankruptcy is not the only option for borrowers. Martin Lynch with Cambridge Credit Counseling said you should look out for a new income-based plan that could cut what you have to pay monthly in half. But it is important, once again, to start planning for student loans to be part of your budget.
It comes down to a significant portion of your budget that you need to become a student of, to learn how to manage your loans effectively and get on the track for forgiveness.
We have this article from the Wall Street Journal dated November 17th, 2022. The Biden administration on Thursday released new guidelines that'll make it easier for economically distressed student loan borrowers to discharge their student loan debt or their student debt in bankruptcy proceedings. These guidelines from the Justice Department and Education Department are going to set specific requirements for borrowers to prove that they are experiencing economic distress. The government will calculate whether a debtor's expenses equal or exceed a debtor's income, and if they do, the Justice Department will declare that the borrower is unable to pay their debts. The Justice Department will assess whether a borrower's present inability to pay will likely persist in the future, taking into account factors like retirement age, disability, long-term unemployment, or if the borrower didn't finish their degree. Student loans are treated differently in bankruptcy proceedings than other forms of consumer debt. In bankruptcy legislation, Congress attempted to balance the goal of providing debtors in dire financial straits with a fresh start against the idea that it's going to prevent abuse of the student loan program, according to a Congressional Research Service. Creditors in the case of federal student loans, which are going to be the Education Department, so they're the creditor, have the opportunity to contest claims in court, making it time-consuming, expensive, and intimidating for borrowers to even attempt the legal maneuver. Historically, it can be very difficult for you to discharge a federal student loan in bankruptcy court. One, you're going against the federal government. They can make that situation very drawn out. They can make it very expensive. You don't have the financial wherewithal. A lot of times you don't have the time wherewithal, so you just drop it. And many people don't want to get involved in that. And that's one of the challenges, is to where many people will tell you we can discharge your student loan debt, but many times they're talking about private debt. You can discharge it through bankruptcy court. They're talking about privately loaned debt through private banks. They're not necessarily talking about a situation in which the Education Department is the creditor. The logic of the bankruptcy code carve-out was the recent college graduates may not have many tangible assets that could be given up, but the education they received, at least theoretically, enables them to have a higher lifetime earnings than they would have had otherwise. So a recent graduate shouldn't be able to game the system by financing their education with loans, claiming hardship, receiving a discharge, and then enjoying the benefits of their education without any debt. I think we need to start having a discussion around the way they set up a system to give very young people large amounts of money, which is going to be subjective, but the debt is going to be unsecured. Why would they let a young person receive that much of a loan, or that large amount of a loan that's unsecured? Person with no work history, no collateral. What is the underwriting for that? Because in that same scenario, if that person was to go to try to get a car, definitely would not qualify for a business loan. But if they were to go to try to get a car, and maybe even go to try to get a house, they would have difficulty getting financed past a certain dollar amount because they don't have even a track record of working. And I think that's something that we need to talk about. What they're doing in this scenario, and I'm not against it, is they're trying to fix this problem on the back end. But my question is, can we maybe find a better solution to try to fix this problem on the front end? Because of the difficulty in discharging this debt through bankruptcy court, because of who the actual creditor is, student loan discharges in bankruptcy cases have been virtually impossible. Out of the roughly 250,000 student loan debtors who on average file for bankruptcy each year, fewer than 300 discharge their educational debt, according to research by Jason, a professor at the University of Utah. Now, here's another article from Forbes. Let's slide down here real quick. This week, the Education Department and the Justice Department announced new policy guidance that will alter how Biden administration handles undue hardship bankruptcy discharge requests by federal student loan borrowers. The new process will leverage Department of Education data and a new borrower-completed, attestation form to assist the government in assessing a borrower's discharge request, according to the U.S. Department of Justice in a press release on Thursday. The new guidelines advise Department of Justice attorneys to stipulate to the facts demonstrating that a debt would impose an undue hardship and recommend to the court that a debtor's student loan be discharged under certain circumstances, according to a statement by the NCLC, which has been advocating for bankruptcy for reform for student loan borrowers for years. Now, this particular guideline provides a framework for Justice Department attorneys to apply in evaluating the factors that courts typically consider in determining undue hardship. Let's see how this rolls out, because we know that the first student loan relief was contested. I think the Biden administration is trying to do something different. You're going to get a lot of people that are going to make reaction videos to this, but what we're going to do is what we consistently do is we're going to say, let's go to the documentation. And to go into the documentation, what you can do is you can go to the United States Department of Justice. You can type in student loans and you actually can pull up the documents. That way, if you want to learn more about this and actually learn what the actual paperwork requires and what the actual paperwork says, you can just read the documents, right? So here's one of the documents. Here's another one of the documents. So instead of, maybe your time can be served better arguing or debating with actually looking at the documents. Now, if you don't have time to do that, I understand. But for the people that want to try to figure out whether or not this is something that could apply to them, maybe they want to ask themselves, if my time be better served arguing with people whether or not I'm for or against this, actually going to the Department of Justice website and reading the documents that they have presented to you, and you can get a better understanding of what this means. So they're all there for you. You can read them. You can download them. You can maybe get with somebody on your team and figure out whether or not this applies to your financial situation. We'll probably leave this link in the description. Hope you got some value from this. David W. Williams, also known as Diamond Dave. I'll talk to you later.